The evening arrives slowly over the deep woods, and with it comes the quiet that belongs only to winter nights when snow is falling and the world seems to hold its breath. The traveler has been walking for some time through the forest, following a path that winds between the tall trees, and now the small cabin appears ahead, its timber walls dark against the white landscape, its single window glowing with a soft, golden light that seems to promise warmth and stillness and rest. The path leading to the cabin is narrow, just wide enough for one person to walk comfortably, and it curves gently between the trees in a way that feels natural, as though it has always been there, as though the forest itself decided where the path should go. The snow on the path is fresh and unmarked, a clean surface that shows no footprints other than the ones the traveler is making now, each step sinking down slightly into the soft powder, leaving behind a gentle impression that will be filled in again by morning when more snow has fallen. The trees on either side of the path are tall, their trunks thick and solid, their branches reaching up and out into the darkness above. Many of these branches are heavy with snow, white against the dark bark, creating patterns that seem almost deliberate in their beauty. Here and there a branch will release a small cascade of snow, the white powder falling down through the still air and landing on the ground below with the softest whisper of sound, so quiet that it is almost not a sound at all, but rather just a slight disturbance in the deep silence that surrounds everything. The traveler walks slowly, not hurrying, not rushing toward the cabin, even though its warmth is visible and inviting just ahead. There is something peaceful about these last few moments of walking, something that feels important to honor and respect. The cold air fills the lungs with each breath, clean and sharp, and somehow refreshing despite its chill. The face feels the touch of snowflakes, tiny cold points that land on the skin and melt almost immediately from the warmth there, leaving behind just the faintest sensation of wetness. Above, the sky is hidden by clouds, thick and low and gray, even in the darkness. These are the clouds that have been dropping snow for hours now, and they will continue to drop snow through the night, patient and steady and endless in their work. There is no moon visible, no stars, just the uniform grayness of the cloud cover and the darkness of the evening that is settled over everything like a soft blanket. The cabin grows closer with each step, and now the traveler can see more details. The timber walls are made of logs that have been fitted together carefully, each one placed with attention and care so that the gaps between them are minimal, filled with some kind of mortar or clay that keeps the wind from passing through. The roof is steeply pitched, designed to shed snow easily, and already there is a thick layer covering it, a white cap that softens the sharp angle and makes the whole structure look somehow gentler, more inviting, more like a natural part of the landscape. The door is centered in the front wall, a simple wooden door with a plain iron handle and hinges that are dark with age. To the right of the door is the window, the one that has been glowing with warm light since the traveler first saw the cabin. The window is small, not large enough to let in much light during the day, but perfect for keeping in the warmth during the cold nights. Through the glass, which is slightly wavy and imperfect in the way that old glass often is, the traveler can see the interior of the cabin, can see the shape of the armchair near the fire, can see the warm glow of the flames dancing in the hearth. The door opens with a gentle creak, and the traveler steps inside, brushing the snow from their shoulders with slow, deliberate movements. The cabin is small, just one room with a hearth on the far wall and a single armchair positioned near the fire. There is a small table by the window, a wooden shelf that holds a few simple things, and a narrow bed in the corner with heavy blankets folded at its foot. The air inside is warm, much warmer than the cold that presses against the walls outside, and it carries the scent of aged cedar and wood smoke, a scent that seems to wrap around the traveler like a familiar embrace. The warmth is noticeable immediately, a physical sensation that touches the face and hands first, those parts that have been most exposed to the cold during the walk. The traveler stands still for a moment just inside the door, feeling the contrast between the cold air that still clings to their clothes and the warm air that fills the cabin. It is a pleasant contrast, one that makes the warmth feel even more welcoming, even more complete. The traveler closes the door slowly, listening to the soft click of the latch, and then stands for a moment in the center of the room, simply breathing, simply being still. Outside, the snow continues to fall in slow, unhurried patterns, each flake drifting down through the darkness and settling on the ground with no sound at all. The forest is silent. The cabin is silent. There is only the faint crackle of the fire and the soft, rhythmic sigh of the wind as it brushes against the eaves and moves on through the trees. The sound of the wind is constant but gentle, never growing louder or more insistent, never suggesting any kind of storm or danger. It is simply there, a background presence that adds to the sense of peace rather than disturbing it. The traveler listens to this sound, finding a kind of comfort in its steadiness, in the way it continues without changing, without demanding attention, just quietly doing what wind does on a winter night in a forest. The traveler removes their coat with slow, careful movements, hanging it on a wooden peg by the door. The coat is thick and heavy, made of wool that has served well during the walk through the forest, keeping out the cold and the snow. It feels good to remove it now, to feel the weight lifted from the shoulders, to allow the body to begin adjusting to the warmth of the cabin without the extra layer. The coat hangs on the peg, dripping very slightly as the snow that has accumulated on it begins to melt in the warm air. Then the boots, unlaced one at a time and set aside on the mat where they will dry slowly through the night. The boots are sturdy and practical, designed for walking through snow and mud and rough terrain. The laces are damp from the snow, and the leather is cold to the touch. But inside the boots, the feet are still warm, protected by thick wool socks that have done their job well. The traveler removes each boot slowly, taking time with the laces, not hurrying, and then sets them neatly side by side on the mat. The floor of the cabin is made of wide wooden planks that have been worn smooth by years of use. They are dark with age, almost black in some places, and they creak very slightly when walked upon, a friendly sound that speaks of a structure that is solid and well built, and has stood here for a long time. The traveler's feet, now freed from the boots and wearing only the thick wool socks, make almost no sound on these planks as they move across the room toward the hearth. The fire is burning low now, just a few glowing embers in the hearth, and the traveler kneels down beside it, reaching for a single log from the small stack nearby. The stack is neat and orderly, each piece of wood cut to approximately the same length, each one dried and aged so that it will burn cleanly and give good heat. The wood is smooth under the traveler's hands, cool still despite being inside the warm cabin, and it has that pleasant weight that good firewood has, substantial and solid. The log is placed carefully onto the embers, positioned so that it will catch easily and burn well. The traveler takes a moment to adjust it, making sure it sits just right, making sure the air can flow around it properly so that the fire will have what it needs to grow. And then, after a few seconds of waiting, the embers begin to do their work. Small flames appear along the edges of the log, tiny fingers of fire that explore the new wood, finding the places where it will burn most easily, beginning the slow process of turning solid wood into heat and light and smoke. The traveler watches this process, not thinking about it, not analyzing it, simply watching. There is something deeply satisfying about watching a fire catch and grow, something that connects to a very old part of human experience, a part that remembers when fire was precious and rare and essential for survival. Even now, in a time when fire can be made easily with matches or lighters, there is still that same fundamental pleasure in watching flames dance and feeling their warmth. The flames grow slowly, climbing up the sides of the log, finding more and more places to burn. The light in the room increases as the flames grow, pushing back the shadows that had been creeping in from the corners. The amber light reaches across the wooden floor, climbs the walls, touches the ceiling beams that run across the space above. Everything it touches seems to glow with a soft, warm quality, a quality that is entirely different from the harsh brightness of electric light or even the cooler glow of daylight through a window. The traveler continues to kneel by the fire for a long moment, simply watching, simply absorbing the warmth that is now radiating more strongly from the hearth. The heat touches the traveler's face and hands, soaking into the skin, beginning to chase away the last remnants of the cold that had settled in during the walk through the forest. It is a pleasant sensation, this gradual warming, this slow return to comfort and ease. After a time that could be a minute or could be 5 minutes or could be longer, the traveler rises slowly from the kneeling position, feeling the slight stiffness in the knees that comes from staying still in one position, feeling the body adjust to standing again. The movement is unhurried, gentle, allowing the body to do what it needs to do without forcing anything. And then the traveler turns away from the fire and moves across the room toward the small table by the window. The table is simple, made of the same dark wood as the floor, with 4 sturdy legs and a surface that has been worn smooth by use. On it sit a few simple objects, a kettle old and made of copper that is darkened with age, a clay pot with a lid, the kind used for storing dried herbs or tea, a single cup, also made of clay, plain and undecorated, and a jug of water, heavy and cool to the touch. The traveler reaches for the clay pot first, lifting the lid carefully. Inside are dried chamomile flowers, their pale yellow petals still holding some memory of the summer fields where they grew. The scent that rises from the pot when it is opened is faint but pleasant, sweet and slightly herbal, immediately recognizable as chamomile to anyone who has ever had chamomile tea before. The traveler looks down at the dried flowers for a moment, appreciating their simple beauty, the way they have been preserved and saved for evenings like this one. The kettle comes next. It is picked up carefully, its weight familiar and comfortable in the traveler's hand. The copper is cool still, not yet heated, and its surface is decorated with the marks of long use, small dents and scratches that tell stories of many previous evenings, many previous pots of tea made in this same cabin. The traveler carries the kettle to the jug of water and begins to pour, watching as the clear liquid flows from the jug's spout into the kettle's wide mouth, filling it slowly, the sound of the water, a gentle splashing that seems loud in the quiet of the cabin, but is actually quite soft. When the kettle is filled to the right level, not too full and not too empty, the traveler stops pouring and sets the jug back down on the table. Then, carrying the kettle carefully, the traveler returns to the hearth. There is an iron hook that extends out over the fire, positioned at just the right height for hanging a kettle or pot. The hook is dark with soot and age, but it is strong and reliable, and the traveler hangs the kettle on it now, adjusting it slightly to make sure it sits properly. Make sure it is positioned where the flames will heat it effectively, but not so close that the heat is too intense. The water in the kettle will take time to boil. This is not a process that can be rushed, not with a wood fire and a copper kettle. It will happen in its own time, and that time will be determined by the strength of the fire and the amount of water and the thickness of the copper and various other factors that are not worth thinking about or worrying over. The water will boil when it is ready, and until then there is nothing to do but wait. And so the traveler moves to the armchair, that comfortable piece of furniture that sits near the fire, positioned perfectly for warmth and for watching the flames. The chair is old, its wood frame dark and solid, its cushions worn soft by years of use. The fabric covering the cushions is a deep, muted color, something between brown and gray and green, the kind of color that does not show dirt or wear easily, the kind of color that belongs in a cabin like this one. The traveler sits down slowly, sinking into the cushions that give beneath their weight, and then support them perfectly. The back of the chair is high enough to support the head if desired, and the arms are wide enough to rest elbows on comfortably. It is, in every way, a chair designed for sitting and resting and being comfortable for long periods of time. The traveler settles into it, adjusting position slightly until everything feels just right, and then becomes still. From this position, the traveler can see several things. The fire, of course, burning now with steady flames that have found their rhythm and are consuming the log at a patient, unhurried pace. The window, with its view of the falling snow outside, each flake visible for a moment as it passes through the beam of golden light that spills out from the cabin into the darkness. The room itself, with its simple furnishings and its atmosphere of peaceful solitude. The armchair holds the traveler in a gentle embrace, and the warmth from the fire reaches across the space between the hearth and the chair, touching the traveler's face and hands, and gradually spreading through the entire body. The cold that had been carried in from outside is melting away now, disappearing like the snow on the windowsill, leaving behind only warmth and comfort, and a growing sense of deep relaxation. The traveler's eyes move slowly around the room, not looking for anything in particular, just observing, just taking in the details of this space. The wooden beams of the ceiling, dark and solid, running parallel across the space above. The walls, made of those fitted logs, each one slightly different from the others, each one contributing to the strength and shelter of the structure. The shelf on one wall, holding a few books with worn spines, a candle in a simple holder, a small wooden box whose contents are unknown and unimportant. There is nothing urgent here, nothing that demands attention or action. Everything in this cabin exists in a state of quiet readiness, simply being what it is, serving its purpose without fuss or complication. The traveler feels this quality in the space and responds to it, allowing their own sense of urgency and purpose to fade away, allowing themselves to simply be present in this moment, in this place, without needing to think about what comes next or what needs to be done. The sound of the wind outside continues its gentle song, brushing against the walls, moving through the eaves, whispering through the forest. It is a sound that the traveler is becoming more attuned to now, hearing not just the wind itself but the subtle variations in it, the way it sometimes carries a slightly different tone when it moves through different types of trees, the way it sometimes pauses for just a moment before continuing on its way. Inside the cabin, the sounds are few but pleasant. The crackle of the fire, irregular but constant, as the flames consume the wood and occasionally send up small sparks that die almost immediately in the air above the hearth. The very faint creaking of the building itself, the normal sounds that any wooden structure makes as it settles and adjusts to temperature changes and the weight upon it. And beginning now the soft sound of the water in the kettle starting to heat, not yet boiling, not even close to boiling, but beginning that process, beginning to move and shift as the temperature rises. The traveler listens to all these sounds without trying to listen to them, simply allowing them to be present in awareness without focusing on any one in particular. They blend together into a kind of quiet symphony, a collection of gentle sounds that speak of safety and shelter and peace. There is nothing harsh here, nothing that jars or startles. Everything is soft, everything is gradual, everything is exactly as it should be. The light in the room has stabilized now. The fire is burning at a steady rate, neither growing nor diminishing, and the glow it provides is constant. This light reaches into all the corners of the small room, though it grows dimmer the farther it gets from its source. The area around the hearth is bright, almost cheerful in its warm illumination. The area where the armchair sits is well lit, comfortable for reading if one wanted to read, though the traveler has no such intention at the moment. The far corners of the room, near the bed and near the door, are dimmer but not dark, existing in a pleasant twilight that is perfect for a peaceful evening. The traveler's gaze returns to the window, drawn by the movement of the falling snow. Each flake that passes through the light from inside is visible for just a moment, a tiny white point moving downward through the darkness, appearing from nowhere and disappearing just as quickly as it moves beyond the reach of the light. There is something almost hypnotic about watching this, about seeing this endless parade of individual snowflakes, each one unique, each one following its own particular path through the air. Beyond the reach of the cabin's light, the forest is barely visible, just dark shapes against the slightly less dark sky. The trees stand motionless, or at least they appear motionless from this distance and in this light. They are being covered slowly, steadily by the accumulating snow, their branches accepting this white burden without complaint, bending slightly under the weight, but not breaking, simply adapting as trees have always adapted to winter and its demands. The traveler wonders in a vague and unimportant way how long the snow has been falling. Hours, certainly. Perhaps it began in the late afternoon, or perhaps it started earlier in the day when the traveler was elsewhere, doing other things that now seem distant and irrelevant. It does not matter when it started. What matters is that it is falling now, and that it will likely continue falling through the night, and that tomorrow morning the world will be transformed, covered in a fresh blanket of white that will make everything clean and new and soft. The kettle on its iron hook has begun to make sounds now, quiet sounds that indicate the water inside is heating. Not the whistle of boiling yet, not even the rumble that comes just before boiling, but small sounds almost musical as bubbles begin to form on the bottom of the kettle where the metal is hottest. These sounds are pleasant to listen to, another element in the quiet symphony of the cabin, another indication that things are progressing as they should, that the evening is unfolding in its proper rhythm. Time passes. The fire burns. The snow falls. The kettle heats. And the traveler sits in the comfortable armchair, feeling the warmth of the fire, listening to the gentle sounds of the cabin and the wind and the barely audible music of water being heated. There is no sense of impatience, no feeling that the water should hurry up and boil already. There is only this peaceful waiting, this simple existence in the present moment, this acceptance of however long things take to happen. The traveler's body is becoming more and more relaxed with each passing minute. The muscles that had been working during the walk through the forest are releasing their tension, softening, letting go of effort. The shoulders drop slightly, no longer held in that slight upward position that comes from carrying tension. The hands, which rest on the arms of the chair, are loose and open, not gripping or holding on to anything. The breathing has slowed and deepened, become more rhythmic, more automatic, requiring no thought or attention. This is one of the gifts of warmth and safety and quiet. The body recognizes when it is allowed to rest, when it can let go of vigilance and simply be. And the body is grateful for this, grateful for the opportunity to soften and relax and recover from whatever efforts have been required of it during the day. The traveler can feel this gratitude in a physical way, can feel the pleasure that comes from sinking more deeply into the chair, from allowing the muscles to release, from giving in to the pull of comfort and ease. The kettle sounds are growing louder now, more insistent. The water inside is moving more actively, heated by the flames beneath, preparing for that final transition from hot water to boiling water. The traveler's attention shifts slightly toward the kettle, not with any sense of urgency, but simply with awareness that soon it will be time to make the tea. Soon there will be that next small task to complete. And then, finally, the whistle begins. It starts soft, almost tentative, and then grows in volume until it reaches a comfortable level. Not too loud, not too soft, just right for announcing that the water has reached its boiling point. The traveler rises from the chair slowly, the body protesting gently against movement after so much pleasant stillness, but the protest is mild and easily overcome. The movement is careful, deliberate, allowing the body to adjust to standing again before attempting to walk. The traveler moves to the hearth and wraps a thick cloth around the handle of the kettle before lifting it from its hook. The cloth protects against the heat that is built up in the copper, allows the kettle to be handled safely. The kettle is carried to the table by the window, its weight familiar now, and set down gently on the wooden surface. The clay cup is waiting there, and the traveler reaches for the pot of chamomile flowers, lifting the lid once more. The scent is stronger now in the warm air of the cabin, rising up from the dried petals in a sweet, gentle wave. The traveler takes a small handful of the flowers, just enough for a single cup of tea, and places them in the bottom of the cup. They settle there, pale and delicate, waiting for the hot water that will bring them back to a kind of life, that will coax out their flavor and their healing properties. The water is poured slowly, carefully, watching as it streams from the kettle's spout into the cup, watching as the chamomile flowers begin to swirl and dance in the hot water, releasing their color and their essence. The water, which was clear when it went into the kettle, is now taking on a pale golden color, the color of chamomile tea, subtle and beautiful. Steam rises from the cup in delicate spirals, carrying the scent of chamomile up into the air, filling this corner of the cabin with its sweet, calming presence. The traveler sets the kettle back down and simply stands for a moment, looking down at the cup, watching the flowers continue their slow dance in the hot water, watching the color deepen slightly as more and more of the chamomile's essence is released. There is no rush to drink it. The tea needs time to steep, time to reach its full flavor and strength. And so there is more waiting, more of this patient, peaceful existence in the present moment. After a time, the traveler picks up the cup, cradling it carefully in both hands. The cup is hot, but not too hot to hold, the clay absorbing some of the heat and dissipating it slowly. The warmth from the cup spreads through the traveler's hands and into the arms, another small source of comfort added to the warmth of the fire and the warmth of the cabin itself. The traveler carries the cup back to the armchair and sits down once more, settling into those familiar cushions, returning to that perfect position of rest and comfort. The cup is held in both hands, raised slightly so that the steam from the tea rises up toward the traveler's face, bringing with it that sweet herbal scent that is so associated with calm and relaxation and peaceful evenings. The traveler takes the first small sip. The tea is still quite hot, hot enough that it must be sipped slowly and carefully, allowing it to cool slightly in the mouth before swallowing. The taste is gentle, subtly sweet, with that distinctive chamomile flavor that is hard to describe, but instantly recognizable to anyone who has had it before. It is a taste that seems to carry with it associations of comfort and care, perhaps because chamomile tea is so often given to children before bed, or to people who are unwell, or to anyone who needs a moment of gentle kindness. The tea slides down the traveler's throat, and its warmth spreads through the chest, settling there like a small glowing coal, radiating heat and comfort from the inside out. Another sip follows, and then another, each one slow and deliberate, each one savored fully before the next one is taken. This is not a drink to be gulped down quickly. This is a drink to be experienced, to be appreciated, to be allowed to do its gentle work of warming and calming and soothing. Between sips, the traveler simply sits, holding the warm cup, looking at the fire, listening to the wind, watching the snow. The evening has settled into a rhythm now, a comfortable pattern of small actions and long stretches of stillness. The fire burns, the snow falls, the tea is sipped, time passes, and all of it feels exactly right, exactly as it should be, exactly perfect for this moment and this place. The light from the fire continues to dance across the walls, creating those soft, shifting shadows that are never quite the same from one moment to the next. The traveler watches these shadows without really seeing them, the eyes unfocused, the mind quiet and empty of thoughts. There is a kind of meditation happening here, though it is not deliberate or formal. It is simply the natural result of being in a peaceful place, engaged in peaceful activities, with no demands or pressures or concerns to occupy the mind. The cup gradually empties as the traveler continues to sip the tea slowly. The chamomile flowers at the bottom of the cup are fully spent now, having given up all their color and flavor to the water. They sit there, pale and lifeless looking, their purpose fulfilled. The traveler takes the last sip, feeling the warmth one more time, tasting the gentle sweetness one more time, and then sets the empty cup down on the small table beside the chair. The hands that held the cup now rest in the traveler's lap, still warm from the tea, still relaxed and loose. The body feels heavy now, heavy in a good way, in a way that speaks of deep relaxation and approaching sleep. The muscles are soft. The breathing is slow and deep. The mind is quiet, almost empty, thoughts appearing occasionally but not staying long, drifting through like clouds across a vast, peaceful sky. The fire has burned down somewhat from its earlier height. The flames are lower now, less vigorous, but still present, still providing warmth and light. The log that was added earlier is mostly consumed, turned to glowing embers that pulse with a deep red-orange light. The traveler considers adding another log, but decides against it. The remaining embers will be enough to keep some warmth in the cabin through the night, and their softer glow is more appropriate now, more suited to sleep than the brighter flames would be. Outside, the snow continues to fall, though perhaps more slowly now than it was earlier. It is hard to tell from inside the cabin, hard to judge whether the snowfall is lessening or whether it just seems that way because the light from the window has dimmed slightly as the fire has burned down. Either way, it does not matter. The snow will fall or it will stop, and either outcome is perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable, part of the natural rhythm of a winter night in the forest. The traveler sits for a long time more in the armchair, not doing anything, not thinking about anything, simply being present in the warmth and quiet and peace of the cabin. The position has become so familiar now, so comfortable, that there is no awareness of sitting, no consciousness of the chair or the cushions or the body's contact with them. There is just existence, just being, just this quiet presence in this quiet space. The fire continues its slow work, the embers glowing with that deep, peaceful light that seems to come from some ancient source, some fundamental essence of warmth and life. The traveler watches these embers without watching them, the eyes resting on them without really seeing, the mind empty of interpretation or analysis or thought. It is a kind of looking that asks nothing and expects nothing, that simply allows the light to be there and to be received. Time continues to pass, though it has lost any meaning it might have had earlier. There are no clocks in the cabin, no way to measure the minutes or hours, and even if there were, it would not matter. The evening unfolds according to its own internal logic, its own natural progression from activity to stillness to rest. The traveler is part of this progression, moving through it without resistance, without trying to speed it up or slow it down, simply allowing it to be what it is. The warmth in the cabin has reached a perfect equilibrium now. It is neither too warm nor too cool, but exactly right, that temperature that allows the body to be completely comfortable without any adjustment or accommodation. The air feels soft somehow, gentle against the skin of the face and hands, carrying with it the mingled scents of wood smoke and cedar, and the faint remaining sweetness of chamomile. Outside the window, the darkness has deepened to its fullest extent. The snow-covered forest is barely distinguishable from the sky above it, both existing in shades of deep blue, gray, and black that blend together at their edges. The occasional snowflake still drifts past the window, caught momentarily in the dim light that spills out from inside, a tiny point of white appearing, and then vanishing into the greater darkness beyond. The traveler's breathing has become so slow and so regular that it is almost imperceptible, each breath taking a long time to complete, the air moving in and out with a rhythm that seems ancient and primal, connected to some deep biological wisdom that knows exactly how to sustain life with the minimum necessary effort. The chest rises and falls gently, steadily, in perfect time with some unheard music, some silent song that plays only in the depths of the body's knowing. There is a quality to this time that is hard to name or describe. It is not quite meditation, not quite sleep, not quite simple wakefulness. It is something between all of these states, a liminal space where the mind is both present and absent, where awareness exists but does not focus on anything in particular, where the self seems to expand and become diffuse, less solid, and more like mist or smoke or the warm air that fills the cabin. The traveler becomes aware, in some distant way, of the weight of their body in the chair, the gentle pressure of the cushions beneath and behind, the way gravity pulls downward with its constant, reassuring force. There is something comforting in this awareness, something that speaks to the fundamental fact of being a physical creature, of existing in a body that has weight and substance and presence in the world. The shadows on the walls have stopped moving now, or have slowed to such a degree that their movement is no longer perceptible. They exist in a state of near stillness, dark shapes against the lighter wood, creating patterns that seem meaningful, but whose meaning remains elusive and unimportant. The traveler looks at these shadows occasionally, the eyes moving across them without purpose, simply receiving the visual information without trying to make sense of it or interpret it in any way. Somewhere in the forest outside, something small might be moving, a mouse perhaps, or a bird settling into its roost for the night, or a branch releasing a bit of snow. But if these things are happening, they make no sound that reaches into the cabin. The walls are thick and solid, and they keep out all but the most persistent sounds, creating an interior space that feels separate from the outside world, protected and safe and entirely its own realm. The traveler's hands rest on the arms of the chair, completely relaxed, fingers lightly curled, in a natural position that requires no muscular effort to maintain. The skin of the hands is warm, warmed by the fire and by the general warmth of the cabin, and there is a pleasant sensation there, a subtle glow that extends from the surface down into the deeper tissues, into the bones themselves perhaps, a warmth that feels like it could last forever. The mind continues its quiet drift, thoughts appearing occasionally like fish surfacing in a dark pool, there for a moment visible and distinct, then gone again beneath the surface, leaving barely a ripple behind. A thought about tomorrow might arise, but it does not stay, does not develop into planning or concern. A memory from earlier in the day might flicker past, but it is already distant, already unimportant, already part of a past that feels further away than it actually is in time. This is one of the gifts of such deep peace. It separates the present moment from all other moments, creates a kind of bubble in time where only now exists, where past and future become abstract concepts that have no real relevance or meaning. The traveler exists entirely in this now, in this chair, in this warmth, in this quietness that seems to have no beginning and no end, but simply goes on, eternal and unchanging. The fire in the hearth is burned down even further, the embers smaller now, their glow more subdued. They pulse very gently, almost imperceptibly, as air moves across them in tiny currents. The heat they give off is less than it was an hour ago, but it is still substantial, still enough to keep the cabin warm, still enough to create that sense of comfort and protection that a fire provides even in its dying stages. The traveler sits and sits and sits, existing in this extended moment of peace, this long pause between the activities of the evening and the coming of sleep. There is no impatience, no desire for this to end, but also no clinging to it, no attempt to make it last longer than it naturally will. It is simply allowed to be what it is, for as long as it is, and when it ends, that will be allowed as well. The wooden planks of the floor creak very slightly as the cabin adjusts to the cooling of the night, as the wood contracts minutely in response to the dropping temperature outside. These sounds are so soft they are almost not sounds at all, more like the idea of sound, the memory of sound, something felt more than heard. But they add to the atmosphere of the space, these small signs of life in the structure itself, evidence that the cabin is not just an inanimate object, but something that breathes and moves and exists in its own way. The traveler's eyelids have become very heavy now, though the eyes remain open, looking without seeing at the dim interior of the cabin. There is an effort required to keep the lids up, a small but noticeable effort that is constantly being exerted, constantly being maintained, and yet there is no decision yet to let them close, to give in to their weight and allow darkness to come. Not yet, not quite yet. There is still this moment to inhabit, still this peaceful wakefulness to experience. The blankets on the bed in the corner wait patiently, their heavy folds ready to provide warmth and comfort when the time comes. But they do not call out or demand attention. They simply are, existing in readiness, fulfilling their purpose through patient waiting. The traveler is aware of them there, in the periphery of vision, in the background of awareness, and there is a comfort in knowing they are waiting, knowing that when this time of sitting is complete, they will be there to receive and hold and warm. The night outside presses against the windows and walls of the cabin, but it does not press hard, does not threaten, or demand entry. It is a gentle presence, the darkness and cold simply existing in their natural state, doing what darkness and cold do without malice or intention, and the cabin stands against this gentle pressure with equal gentleness, its walls and roof and door creating a boundary between inside and outside, between warmth and cold, between light and dark. The traveler takes a breath, slightly deeper than the ones before it, and with this breath comes a subtle shift in the quality of awareness. The moment of sitting is approaching its natural conclusion. The time of absolute stillness is beginning to transform into something else, into the slow movement toward bed and blankets, and the final surrender into sleep. It is not a sudden change, not an abrupt transition, but rather a gentle evolution, a natural progression from one state to the next. But still the traveler sits for a few moments more, honoring the peace that has been found here, acknowledging the gift of this time, this space, This perfect combination of warmth and safety and solitude. The chair has served well. The fire has done its work. The tea has provided its gentle comfort. And now, slowly, gradually, it is time to move toward the next phase of the evening, toward the bed and the blankets and the deeper rest that waits there. The traveler's body makes small adjustments, preparing for movement. The shoulders roll slightly. The back straightens a bit. The feet, which have been resting flat on the floor, shift position minutely. These are not conscious actions, but rather the body's own wisdom, its preparation for standing, its readiness to leave the chair and move across the room. But still, there is no hurry. Even in preparation for movement, there is time. There is always time. The evening has taught this lesson, has demonstrated through its own slow unfolding that there is never any real need to rush, never any true urgency that cannot wait a few moments more. And so the traveler allows these few moments, allows this gradual preparation, allows the body to ready itself in its own way and its own time. And then, very slowly, the traveler begins to rise. The hands press down slightly on the arms of the chair, providing support. The legs engage muscles that have been resting now being asked to work again, to lift and support the body's weight. There is a moment of stiffness, a moment when the legs protest slightly at being called back into service. But this passes quickly, and the body comes to standing, vertical once more, balanced and stable on the wooden floor. The traveler stands beside the chair for a long moment, simply being upright, allowing the body to adjust to this new position, allowing the blood to redistribute itself after so long of sitting. There is a slight dizziness, very slight, just a momentary sense of the world shifting, and then it passes, and everything steadies and becomes clear again. But gradually, slowly, the body begins to send its subtle signals. The eyelids grow heavier. The head begins to feel less supported, less stable, wanting to lean back against something. The comfort of the chair, which has been so perfect for sitting and resting, begins to feel less perfect, less complete, as though the body knows that there is something more comfortable available, something more appropriate for true rest. And so, finally, after what could be minutes, or could be an hour, or could be even longer, the traveler stirs. The movement is small at first, just a slight shift in position, a straightening of the back, a clearing of the throat. And then, slowly, deliberately, the traveler begins to rise from the chair, feeling the stiffness that has settled into the legs and back from sitting so long, allowing the body to stretch slightly and adjust to the idea of standing again. The room feels slightly cooler now than it did before, or perhaps it just feels that way because the traveler has been sitting still for so long, has allowed the body temperature to drop slightly in the stillness. But it is not uncomfortably cool. It is still warm enough, still comfortable enough. The fire has done its work well, heating the air and the walls and everything in the cabin so that even as it burns down, its warmth remains, held in the fabric of the space itself. The traveler moves to the window and stands there for a long moment, looking out at the night. The snowfall is definitely lighter now, just occasional flakes drifting down through the darkness, taking their time, in no hurry to reach the ground. The forest is barely visible, just the faintest suggestion of trees rising up into the dark sky. Everything is covered in snow, every branch and every surface and every angle softened and transformed by that white covering. The traveler can see their own reflection faintly in the window glass, a ghostly image superimposed over the view of the snowy night outside. The face in the reflection looks calm, peaceful, the features soft and relaxed. The traveler looks at this reflection for a moment, seeing themselves as though from the outside, and feels a quiet satisfaction, a sense that all is well, that this evening has unfolded exactly as it should have, that there is nothing to regret or wish had been different. After a time, the traveler turns away from the window and moves across the room toward the bed that waits in the corner. The bed is narrow, but looks comfortable, with a mattress that appears thick enough to provide good support, and those heavy blankets folded at its foot, waiting to be pulled up and settled over whoever lies beneath them. The traveler reaches the bed and sits down on its edge, feeling the mattress give slightly, feeling the wooden frame beneath it, solid and sturdy and reliable. The process of preparing for sleep begins now, slow and methodical and unhurried. Each movement is deliberate, each action performed with care and attention. The traveler removes the thick wool sweater first, pulling it up over the head slowly, feeling the slight static in the fabric as it passes over the hair. The sweater is folded carefully, despite the fact that no one will see it, and it does not matter whether it is folded or not. But the act of folding feels right, feels like part of the ritual of preparing for sleep, and so it is done with care. The sweater is placed on the wooden chair that sits beside the bed, a simple chair with a straight back and no cushions, a chair meant for holding clothes rather than for sitting in. Next comes the shirt, unbuttoned slowly, one button at a time, each small task given its full measure of attention. The shirt is removed and folded, and placed on top of the sweater. Then the belt is unbuckled, the trousers removed, folded, added to the small pile of clothing on the chair. Finally, the thick wool socks pulled off one at a time, revealing feet that are pale and slightly warm from being enclosed in the wool for so long. The traveler stands for just a moment in the undergarments, feeling the air of the cabin against bare skin. It is not cold, not uncomfortable, but it is noticeably cooler than being fully clothed, and so there is motivation to move quickly now, to get under the blankets where warmth waits. The traveler pulls back the top blanket, revealing the linen sheet beneath, pale and smooth and clean-looking. Then, moving carefully, the traveler slides into the bed, lying down on the sheet, and then pulling the blankets up, one by one, until they cover completely, reaching up to the chin, creating a cocoon of warmth and weight and comfort. The mattress beneath is firm but not hard, supporting the body well, allowing it to relax fully into its support. The pillow is soft, filled with down that shifts and adjusts to the shape of the head, cradling it gently. The blankets are heavy, their weight creating a sensation of being held, being protected, being safe. The traveler adjusts position slightly, finding the most comfortable way to lie, and then becomes still, eyes open, looking up at the ceiling, where the last faint glow from the fire creates moving shadows that shift and change in slow, peaceful patterns. The room is very quiet now. The fire has burned down to just embers, barely crackling at all, just glowing silently in the hearth. The wind outside has diminished to almost nothing, just the occasional soft breath that brushes against the walls and then is gone. The snow has stopped falling, or is falling so lightly that it makes no difference. Everything is still. Everything is peaceful. Everything is exactly as it should be for sleep. The traveler lies in the bed, feeling the warmth of the blankets beginning to build, feeling the way the bed holds and supports the body, feeling the softness of the pillow beneath the head. The breathing is slow and deep, automatic and rhythmic, requiring no thought or attention. The eyes are heavy, the lids wanting to close but not quite closing yet, just remaining half open, looking up at the ceiling without really seeing it. The mind is very quiet now, almost empty of thoughts. Occasionally something will drift through, a memory of the walk through the forest, a fleeting image of the tea steeping in the cup, a vague awareness of the snow outside. But these thoughts do not stay long, do not take hold. They simply appear and then drift away again, like snowflakes melting on warm ground, leaving nothing behind. The body is completely relaxed now, every muscle soft and loose, every part of it released from effort and tension. There is a kind of dissolution happening, a gradual letting go of the sense of being a separate, distinct entity. The boundaries between the body and the bed seem to blur slightly. The traveler is becoming part of the warmth, part of the darkness, part of the stillness that fills the cabin and the forest and the whole winter night. The eyes finally close, the lids sliding down gently, covering the eyes and bringing a deeper darkness, a more complete rest. Behind the closed lids, there is nothing to see, just a uniform blackness that is restful and comforting, and exactly right. The breathing continues, slow and deep, and with each exhale, the body seems to sink a little more deeply into the bed, to release a little more fully into the support beneath it. Sleep is very close now. It hovers at the edges of awareness, patient and gentle, waiting for the moment when the last small thread of wakefulness will release and allow the transition to happen. There is no resistance to this, no attempt to hold on to consciousness or awareness. The traveler is ready for sleep, welcomes it, allows it to come in its own time and in its own way. The cabin stands in the dark forest, its walls strong and protective, its hearth glowing faintly with the last embers of the evening's fire. Inside, in the bed in the corner, the traveler lies beneath the heavy blankets, breathing slowly, deeply, peacefully. The snow has stopped falling. The wind has become silent. The world is perfectly still. And in this stillness, in this perfect peace, in this complete and absolute quiet, the traveler drifts away from waking and into sleep. The transition is so gradual that there is no clear moment when it happens. One breath is taken in waking, the next in sleep, and there is no difference between them, no change or shift or break in the rhythm. The night continues, time passes. The darkness remains, and in the cabin, in the warmth and the safety and shelter of these timber walls, the traveler sleeps deeply and peacefully, lost in dreams that are formless and gentle, and entirely without urgency or concern. The hours move slowly forward. The embers in the hearth cool gradually, their glow fading to almost nothing, until all that remains is a faint warmth in the stones and ashes. The cabin grows slightly cooler, but never cold. The warmth that was built up during the evening held by the walls and the air itself, dissipating slowly through the long hours of the night. Outside, the clouds begin to thin slightly, just barely, allowing the faintest hint of starlight to filter through. The forest remains still, the trees standing like silent guardians around the small cabin, their branches heavy with the accumulated snow. Nothing moves. Nothing changes. Everything simply is, existing in its own perfect state of winter rest. The traveler continues to sleep, breathing quietly, the body completely at ease, the mind far away in whatever place it goes during deep sleep. There are no disturbances, no sounds or lights or sensations that might bring a return to waking. There is only the continuation of rest, of peace, of the deep, healing sleep that comes after a day well spent and an evening well enjoyed. Time moved forward in the way it always does, patient and unstoppable, carrying the night toward the eventual coming of dawn. But dawn is still far away, still many hours in the future, and there is no need to think of it now. There is only this present moment, this perfect stillness, this absolute peace that fills the cabin and the forest and the whole sleeping world. And so the traveler sleeps on, and the cabin stands, and the forest waits, and the night continues, all of it together forming a single, unified moment of perfect rest that extends forward without end, gentle and unchanging, and infinite. The traveler stands beside the chair for a moment longer than perhaps necessary, simply existing in this vertical position, feeling the way the body has adjusted, the way balance has been found and maintained. The floor beneath the feet is solid and reassuring, those wide wooden planks that have supported so many steps over so many years. There is a kind of conversation happening between the feet and the floor, a silent exchange of weight and support, of pressure and resistance, that requires no words or thoughts, but simply happens, naturally and perfectly, the way such things always happen when the body is allowed to do what it knows how to do. The room looks slightly different from this standing position than it did from the chair. The angles have changed. The perspectives have shifted. What was eye level before is now below eye level. What was above is now more directly ahead. These changes are subtle but noticeable, and they create a sense of seeing the space anew, of experiencing it freshly, even though nothing has actually changed except the position of the person viewing it. The traveler moves slowly toward the window, drawn there by some instinct or impulse that has no clear source or purpose. The movement is unhurried, each step taken with care and attention, the feet placed deliberately on the wooden floor, making only the faintest sound, just the softest whisper of sock against wood. The distance to the window is short, just a few steps, and yet it feels important to take time with these steps, to not rush through them, to allow each one to be complete in itself before taking the next. At the window, the traveler stops and stands, looking out into the darkness beyond. The snow has indeed stopped falling completely now, or has diminished to such a degree that individual flakes are no longer visible. The forest outside is a study in darkness and subtle variations of darkness, shapes that suggest trees and spaces that suggest sky, all of it existing in that deep blue-gray that belongs to winter nights when clouds obscure the stars, but do not create complete blackness. The traveler's breath creates a small fog on the glass of the window, a circle of condensation that appears and then slowly fades as the cold glass absorbs the warmth. This small phenomenon is noticed but not dwelled upon, just another small detail in the rich tapestry of sensory experiences that makes up this evening, this night, this slow progression toward sleep and rest. Looking out at the forest, the traveler feels a sense of kinship with it, a recognition that the forest, too, is resting, that the trees are sleeping in their way, that the earth beneath the snow is dormant and still, gathering its strength for the distant spring. There is a cycle to all things. a rhythm of activity and rest, of growth and dormancy, and right now, in this moment, in this season, rest is what is called for, what is appropriate, what is right. After a time that could be long or could be short, time has become even more fluid and unmeasurable. Now, the traveler turns away from the window and begins to move toward the bed. The bed waits in its corner, patient and ready, those blankets folded at its foot, still waiting to be pulled up and spread over the body that will soon lie beneath them. The journey across the room is slow and contemplative. Each step is noticed, each movement of the body registered in some deep place of awareness. The right foot lifts and moves forward and sets down. Then the left foot does the same. Then the right again. It is a simple process, walking, something that has been done countless times without thought or attention, and yet right now, in this slow and peaceful state, even walking becomes something worthy of notice, something that deserves to be experienced fully, rather than just being a means to an end. The bed is reached. The traveler stands beside it, looking down at it, seeing it as it is, a simple piece of furniture designed for rest, made of wood and cloth and filling, assembled by human hands for human use. But it is also more than that. It is a refuge, a haven, a place where consciousness can be set aside for a time, where the demands of waking life can be temporarily released, where the body can do its necessary work of repair and renewal without interference from the busy mind. The traveler sits down on the edge of the bed, feeling the mattress compress slightly under the weight, feeling the give and then the support, the way the bed accepts the body and holds it and makes room for it. The hands rest on the knees, and there is another pause here, another moment of simple being before the next action is taken. The process of preparing for bed begins again, though much of it has already been done. The thick wool sweater is already removed, already folded and placed on the chair. The shirt is already off, already added to the neat pile. The traveler is already mostly undressed, already prepared for sleep in most ways. What remains is just the final step of lying down, of pulling up the blankets, of settling in fully and completely. But even this simple remaining task is approached with the same unhurried quality that has characterized the entire evening. The body turns slightly, preparing to swing the legs up onto the bed. The hands reach for the blankets, preparing to pull them back. Each small movement is given its due time, its proper amount of attention and care. The legs lift from the floor and move onto the bed, the feet tucking in under the sheet, the legs extending and then settling into their most comfortable position. The upper body follows, leaning back, lowering down, until the head reaches the pillow and is supported by it, cradled by it, held by it in that perfect way that good pillows have of being neither too soft nor too firm, but exactly right. The blankets are pulled up slowly, one after another, each one adding its weight and its warmth to the growing sense of comfort and security. The wool blanket comes first, heavy and substantial, creating an immediate sense of being covered and protected. Then the second blanket, lighter but still contributing to the overall warmth. And finally, adjustments are made, the blankets pulled higher or lower as needed, arranged just so, until everything feels exactly right, exactly perfect, exactly as it should be.